Hello, everyone, and welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin, and today I'll be discussing The Miracle of Morgan's Creek from 1944. And so, let me get into some behind the scenes details. Eddie Bracken, who's one of the stars of the film, he recalled that the studio was being driven crazy by the fact that Preston Sturges, who's the director of this film, he would spend the day rehearsing the camera, having nothing shot by 4 p.m. in the afternoon. However, the actor noted, between 4 and 6, Sturges would get 11 pages in the can, effectively producing in 2 hours with what many directors shot in 3 days. Okay, and so what he's talking about here is that Preston Sturges was crazy in regards to his working schedule. And so now I'll get into my thoughts on the plot. I give it a 3 out of 5. I'm not a huge fan of the main character in this film. The actress is fine, she was okay in The Greatest Show on Earth. I just don't like this character here, She's very manipulative. She uses the Norman, I think, Norville, rather. She uses him. I'm not a huge fan of her. It's played for laughs, but I don't find her very funny. I find Norville and everyone around her funny. I don't think she's very funny. Now, one of my favorite shows of all time is Seinfeld. And that show is loaded with terrible people and terrible things they do to each other. But in that, they're pretty outspoken about their awfulness, if that makes sense. In this movie, she's not. She's very, she pretends to be nice and good and whatnot. I'm not a huge fan of that. So that's one of the reasons why I don't like her character arc. And you just feel bad for him, for Norm. I keep saying Norville. It's Norm. I feel bad for him. He wants to fight in the war, but he has all these not ailments, but he has all of these allergies and stuff, so he can't serve. So, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. So the story itself, I was like, yeah, it's okay. And the actual quote unquote miracle, the miracle of Morgan's Creek, happens in the last 2 minutes of the movie. Because the way it's told is it's told in the present day and then looking back 6 months prior to build up to that. So it's kind of told in not reverse per se, but more in flashback. Because the people are calling, the governor and stuff, they're talking about what's happening in Morgan's Creek, which is a very small town. So, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I like the idea of it, the style of it. I just don't like the characters that were following along, per se. I think it would have been much more interesting with different ones. And so that kind of leads into my thoughts on the acting. I gave that a 3 out of 5 as well. So the only actors I really liked in this movie were the police dad. He's the main girl's dad. And there's these older guys who are calling the governor, telling him what's happening. I only like those characters, really. Everyone else is just okay. As bad as I feel for Norm, I don't really like his acting. I definitely don't like the acting of the lead girl either. I just think everyone is it feels kind of off, if that makes sense. It's supposed to be a comedy, right? But some of these people don't feel like comedic actors. It just feels a little forced. I wasn't a huge fan of the acting either. Okay, so the directing, I gave it a 4 out of 5. I actually really liked it. Preston Sturges is great. I really liked The Lady Eve. And so when I was going into this, I was kind of hoping for something like that movie where you have compelling actors and characters, but then also a little bit of a romance and some comedy to it. This, they try all of that. I just don't think the cast was very well put together. And so to me, that's where it suffers. But I do like the idea he had with it. Can you really blame the actors though? I'm not sure, because I've only seen, the only actor in this movie that I'd seen in anything else was the main girl, and that was in The Greatest Show on Earth. I don't think I really liked her in that one either. So it could be their abilities. It definitely feels like a B movie. I liked the idea. The concept, I think, is a really funny idea. I just wish they had better actors like a Barbara Stanwyck or a Henry Fonda. I think that would have been much, much more interesting. But yeah, that's kind of what I thought about the directing. Now, for cinematography and special effects, gave it a 3 out of 5. To me, it was just kind of average, not really fancy cinematography, nothing crazy or anything like that. The set pieces, however, were really cool. It looked like we were in a real town and a real theater and all of that. I like that. I think it was great. It felt very realistic. It almost looks like the town in Back to the Future, funny enough. So, no real complaints, but nothing really stood out to me either. All right, in regards to music, I gave it a 3 out of 5. I thought it was pretty generic. There's not a whole lot of music. I mean, there's the scene at the beginning where the girls go into a party and stuff, and yeah, it's nice big band type music, but again, pretty forgettable. Nothing that really stands out. But it's not awful, because if it were awful, I would give it a lower score and be like, oh yeah, I hated this music and whatnot. Like I bring up The Chic a lot, where they use this horrible 70s synth organ music that just does not fit in with that movie. This one has nothing. There's nothing that's like, this is terrible, and nothing that's like, it's great. It's pretty forgettable. All right, so tallying that all up, that brings my Letterboxd score to a 3.2 out of 5, which I'll be lowering to a 3 out of 5. So would I recommend this movie? It's a very soft recommendation because it's not a terrible movie, but it's definitely a middle of the road, just okay movie. I don't think general audiences will like this one as much. The comedy in it is dated, and not in the sense of, it's dated in the sense that it's a different style of comedy you don't see too much anymore. It feels very vaudevillian, which can be funny, but in this case it wasn't. And it was just kind of strange. It was a really strange movie. So I don't know. If you're into weird slapstick comedy, I guess you can watch it. I don't know. It's not one that I will be recommending to everybody. All right. Well, those are my thoughts on The Miracle of Morgan's Creek from 1944. Thank you so much for watching and listening to today's episode. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Really Old Movies, where I discuss details about the week's particular film. New podcast episodes are released Saturdays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. And video versions are released on YouTube and Rumble Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin. Take care.